ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੁਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਆਦ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੁਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। Welcome Sangat ji to today's discourse. Thank you to Zakaria ji and Bindi Kaur for providing the introduction and the Simran. As it was mentioned in the introduction, I'd like you to focus on the mantra, whichever mantra that may be for your tradition. Whilst listening to the discourse today, just have that mantra circulating through your mind while you're listening, concentrating on both the mantra and the discourse. We are truly blessed to be in the Sangat today. Each one of us that are in the Sangat today, we've been brought into this Sangat by the Divine themselves. The Divine has grabbed our arm and brought us to this Sangat. Through no effort of ourselves have we come to this Sangat. Gurbani says, Bin Bhagga Satsang na labbe. Without good fortune, we cannot enter the Sadh Sangat. So Sangat ji, for the next 45 minutes or so until 8 o'clock, let's really concentrate on our mantra and make the most of this quality time with the Divine. So Sangat ji, let's cast our mind back to the second cycle of time, the Yug of Treta. Approximately 2.1 million years before Christ. This Yug lasted around 1.2 million years, and the average age of a human was approximately 10,000 years. But before we delve into the discourse, let's look into these ages of time. So there are 4 cycles of time. We have Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, and Kaljug. The world we live in continuously cycles through these ages, one after the other. First there was Satyug, that led into Treta, which led into Dwapar, leading into Kaljug, and back into Satyug. Until the end of time, the world will continue to cycle through these ages, one after the other. So what are these 4 cycles of time? Satyug. Satyug is the age of truth, of Sat. Imagine a table with 4 legs. Satyug is that table with all 4 legs intact. It has complete stability. In the age of Satyug, Bhai Gurdas ji says in their writing, the average age of a human was 100,000 years. People had adopted divine values. These were instilled within their hearts, and would continuously contemplate on the name of the divine. However, due to the length of human life, towards the end of Satyug, people started to feel immortal. They forgot the reality of death. A sense of ego started to develop, where people would feel that they are the divine themselves. To remind them of their reality and the reality of death, the divine reduced the average life expectancy to a tenth of what it was in Satyug. So 100,000 became 10,000. Treta was an age similar to that of a table with 3 legs, still balanced, but the stability has been reduced. In Dwapar, the conduct of man further reduced. Ego, pride, attachment, greed were all on the rise. More and more people were disconnecting from the truth. The average lifespan was further reduced by 10, from 10,000 to now 1,000. It was likened to a table with 2 legs. The stability is almost non-existent. Finally, we arrive at the age of Kaljug, the current age we live in, the age of hatred, hypocrisy, ego, lust, deception. The average life expectancy was again reduced by 10 to 100. This was likened to a table with only 1 leg. No stability and no foundation. A place almost all covered by Maya. A place where finding true Sangat and saintly beings is almost impossible. So these cycles of time will continue to come one after the other, bringing change after change after change. But the only consistency and truth throughout these ages is the one true divine. So let's cast our minds back to the age of Treta, the 3rd cycle of time. There lived a saint known by the name of Keshav. Keshav would often retreat into the jungles, where he would perform meditation on the one true divine. Keshav and his wife Diti had 3 children: Harnakash, Harnakash, and Holika. Harnakash, the oldest of the children, was a power-hungry man. He would oppress and battle anyone that came into his way. The hostile ways of Harnakash eventually led to his demise. Killed by Varhara, who was known to be the incarnation of Vishnu. The news of this death, the death of Harnakash, absolutely terrified Harnakash, his younger brother. The fear of death petrified Harnakash to such an extent that it put him into a trance. What could he possibly do that could protect him from the inevitable? For days and days he would sit searching for the answer, and eventually, after deep, deep contemplation, Harnakash had found his answer. He had heard of many saints and meditators that acquired worldly powers through their meditation, and thought that maybe through doing the same he could acquire these powers that would protect him from death. With fear, ego, and the desire for worldly powers being the basis of his meditation, Harnakash set out on his path to immortality. Sangatji, the path of spirituality is one of love, and not like one of business, where you demand an exchange for what you have invested. So with this in mind, Harnakash left and went into deep meditation. Meanwhile, Harnakash's wife, Kealu, was expecting another son, who would be known as the great Saint Prahlad. Whilst Kealu was expecting, she had spent significant amounts of time with a very well-respected saint known as Narad Muni. During this time, Kealu would spend much of the day meditating and listening to spiritual discourses that were going on in Narad Muni's vicinity. This constant reinforcement of meditation and positivity filtered its way through to the child. The divine energy would later become the foundation to her son's meditation, who from a very early age would have his focus solely fixated on the one true divine. During this time, Harnakash was delving deeper and deeper into his meditation. And such was the intensity of his meditation, he became pleasing to Shiva, the deity he was meditating upon. With this happiness in mind, Shiva tells Harnakash that for all your meditation and focus, I will reward you with a gift. This was that he could ask for anything he wanted. Harnakash had achieved his goal. Brimming with happiness and pride, he lays down his demands. Remembering, Sangatji, that the underlying purpose to his meditation being ego, fear and power, instead of asking for the love of the divine, Harnakash asks for these 5 things. The first demand, he wished not to be killed by any human or animal. The second, he wished not to be killed indoors or outdoors. The third, he wished not to be killed during the day or the night. The fourth, he wished not to be killed by any projectile weapons known as astar or handheld weapons known as shastar. The fifth and final demand was he wished to be invincible on land, water and in air. The demands were presented and Shiva granted them. Harnakash was ecstatic. With these powers in his armory, who could possibly defeat him? Even the divine themselves wouldn't be able to kill him, he thought to himself. Bhai Bahadur Singh Ji would often mention in their discourses that spiritualists will often and frequently obtain experiences and may even gain worldly powers. But for a true spiritualist, these experiences are not the end goal. Don't sell yourself short. Our only goal is liberation and nothing less. But this single pointed focus upon the divine just did not exist for Harnakash. His desires were what possessed him. Harnakash returned to his kingdom, and as soon as he returned, he ordered all of the people in the land to forsake their existing beliefs and to worship him and him alone. Harnakash knew himself to be immortal. No one could kill him. Many of the villagers, through absolute fear, obeyed the command of their king and started to worship him as God. Those who were reluctant, even they eventually turned their backs on their beliefs. Harnakash had complete control over all except one, and that was his son, Prahlad. Prahlad was a divine child. From an early age, he would be absolutely absorbed in the love of the divine, and he would spend his whole day in meditation. As Prahlad came of age, His father, King Harnakash, sent him to the local school to get educated for the worldly affairs ahead. Prahlad's teacher, a proud man called Sunda, was very excited to have the king's son in his class, as it would build his reputation in the local town. He would try his very best to teach Prahlad the ways of the world, hoping he could impress the king. However, Prahlad was disinterested in learning about these worldly affairs. His focus was solely on the divine. What use are these worldly affairs? Prahlad would say. Prahlad's attitude was starting to irritate Sunda. After each lesson, as per Harnakash's order, Sunda would tell the whole class to chant, "Hail Harnakash, Hail Harnakash, Hail Harnakash." However, a few weeks had passed, and he had now noticed that when he would order the class to chant the name of Harnakash, the king, Prahlad would stay quiet. Sunda demanded an answer for why Prahlad wasn't obeying his father's and his own orders. Prahlad replied, "Why should I chant the name of my father when he is not the supreme divine, Ram?" Sunda, infuriated, had had enough. He immediately left and went straight to King Harnakash in his palace and told him of Bhagat Prahlad's disobedience. As he told him, Harnakash's face went bright red in rage. "How dare he disobey my command? After all, I am the indestructible supreme power." Enraged, the demonic king told Sunda to bring Prahlad to his custody right away. Upon Prahlad's arrival, Harnakash commanded his son to stop reciting the name of Ram at once. And in a desperate attempt to persuade his son, he promised him that he would release him from his custody. But for Prahlad, this command was simply off limits. It was unacceptable. Why should I forsake the refuge of the one divine who has created water, lands, hills, and mountains? Prahlad replied. The divinity that shone from his 6-year-old son left Harnakash speechless. The only way to force Prahlad into abandoning the divine's name was through physical torture. And these events are depicted in the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji by Bhagat Kabir Ji. Prahlad pathaye padhan saal, sang sakha bahu liye baal, moko kaha padavas aal jaal, मेरी पटिया लिख देहो श्री गोपाल, नहीं छोड़ो रे बाबा राम नाम, मेरो और पढ़न से नहीं काम. Prahlad pathaye padhan saal. Prahlad was sent to school. Sang sakha bahu liye baal. He took many of his friends along with him. Moko kaha padavas aal jaal. He asked his teacher, "Why do you teach me about worldly affairs?" Meri patiya likh deo Sri Gopal. Write the name of the dear Lord on my tablet. Nahi chodo re Baba Ram naam. Oh Baba, I will not forsake the name of the Lord. The ego-driven king prepared many barbaric punishments. Each time they were becoming worse and worse. In the first punishment, Bhagat Prahlad Ji were thrown into the river Satluj with their hands and feet tied, left to drown. But Bhagat Prahlad Ji just uttered the name of Ram and they started to float. Harnakash's men then tied a heavy rock onto Prahlad, and they threw him again into the river. But with the name of Ram on the lips of Bhagat Prahlad ji, he once again rose to the surface. He was then thrown off a high mountain, but again, Prahlad ji started to float. Harnakash, in anger, then resorted to his sister Holika, who had the ability to be resistant to the effects of fire, and ordered her to lure Bhagat Prahlad ji into the fire with her. But again, instead of Prahlad becoming engulfed in the fire, he uttered the name of Ram, and the opposite happened. Holika burned away to her demise. Harnakash, drenched in fear and anger, had decided the only way to kill Prahlad was to do it himself. So one day, he collected Prahlad and tied him to a giant iron pole. Red with rage, Harnakash drew his sword, ready to kill Prahlad, and exclaimed, "Where's your lord now?" Prahlad calmly replied, "Beware, your death is near." Harnakash, crippled by his anger, loaded his strike to kill Bhagat Prahlad ji, and overflowing with ego roared, "Not my death, but yours." As these words left his mouth, the divine, in the form of Narsingh, a half man, half lion, took Harnakash in his lap and with his sharp claws teared into him at the stroke of dusk, killing him and protecting his devotee. Har jug jug bhagat upaya, पैज रखदा आया राम राजे, हरनाकस दुष्ट हर मारिया, प्रहलाद तराया, अहंकारिया निंदका पिठ दे, नाम देव मुख लाया, जन नानक ऐसा हर सेवया, अंत लय छड़ाया, हर जुग जुग भगत उपाया, पैज रखदा आया राम राजे. In each and every age, he creates his devotees and preserves their honors. Harnakas dusht har marya, Prahlad taraya. The Lord killed the wicked Harnakash and saved Prahlad. Ahankariya nindaka pith de, naam deo mukh laya. He turned his back on the egotists and slanderers and showed his face to Namdev. Jan Nanak aisa har sevya, ant lay chadaya. Servant Nanak has so served the Lord that he will protect him in the end. Guru Ram Das Ji in this Shabad talks about how throughout the ages, the divine has always protected his devotees and depicts the events of how Bhagat Prahlad ji was saved. Sangat ji, Harnakash might be a demon of the past, and we might be thinking, surely as a society we have moved forward from these demonic ways. But the question is, are we more like Bhagat Prahlad ji, who were the epitome of love and devotion and kept their focus on the divine no matter what? Or are we more like Harnakash, who was led and driven by his ego and self-centeredness? Do we live our lives where the divine is at the core? Or is it all about what I want, what I do, what I? Sangaji, we often feel that we can control all of our situations and get caught into this web of ego where we feel like we have the power over everything and everyone around us. And when things don't go our way, we often, similar to Harnakash, start to get upset and frustrated. We are so engrossed in our busy lives. Like Harnakash, we forget our mortality and treat this world as permanent. Maya, and in particular ego, Sangaji, is all around us. It works in subtle and conniving ways. We all have this ego within us, Sangaji, and if we don't take active steps to change our lives, we too will get caught up in this web of ego and Maya. So how can we save ourselves from the claws of Maya and become more like Bhagat Prahlad ji and not turn into the modern day Harnakash? The answer is Sangat. If we look at the main differences between Harnakash and Prahlad, one was surrounded by divine saints and the other was not, and consequently, he was trapped in the web of Maya. There's a famous saying that is, you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. And if we analyze our own lives, Sangatji, and look at the companions that we have around us, are these 5 people taking us closer to the divine, or are they taking us further away? Having Sangat of pious souls will give you the right foundation to build on your meditation. The taller the building is, the stronger the foundation has to be. Gurbani says, Aap chhod benati karho, sad sang agn sagar tarho. Renounce your selfish and conceit and offer your prayers. In the Sadh Sangha, the company of the holy, cross over the ocean of fire. Sangaji, if a ship changes its direction by even 1 degree, it will sail to a completely different country. In the same way, if we make a small change in our life, with the grace of the divine, we too can change our life for the better. We all have past, Sangaji, committed acts we regret, said things we shouldn't have, done things we shouldn't have. But that's all the past. We can't change that now. Don't think you're a bad person for these things that you have done. The fact that we are sitting together here in the Sangat shows that we all have the blessing of the divine, and that the divine is providing us with another opportunity. Forget what happened yesterday, today, and focus on now. How can you take a small step to the divine, Sangatji? Bhai Gurdas ji says, Charn sarn gur ek penda jaye chal, Satgur kot penda aage hoye let hai. A disciple who walks 1 step towards Guru to take his refuge and goes to him with devotion and humility, the Guru advances to receive him by taking 1,000,000 steps. So your 1 step, your 1 act will cause the Guru to walk towards you and embrace you. So what steps can we take towards the divine, Sangatji? Well, this can be anything. It can be a minute of mantra meditation, spending 5 minutes listening to your scriptures. It could even be something like giving a little bit of your money to charity, helping someone else. Whatever you do, Sangatji, do it with pure intention and watch the magic before your eyes. We are truly blessed to be in this Sangat today, and blessed that we have this opportunity to take active steps in our life to become closer to the divine. So Sangatji, let's take advantage of this time, take advantage of the opportunity we have to change our lives now, and take that step towards the Guru and towards the divine. Having said this, Sangatji, please forgive me for many mistakes throughout the discourse, and please continue to bless us all so we can continue to do your seva and serve at your feet. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.